Hey guys, I wanted to give some additional commentary on the optional readings I've put up. So I don't know if you've noticed, but on our syllabus, um, there's a couple readings that you don't have to do. I threw them on there because they might help you write your paper, or if you're just interested in this topic in general, they might deepen your understanding of what's going on. So since I'm not really going to teach these in class and we won't really talk about them, let me walk through what I would highlight in these articles and what you can kind of look for as you read through them if you choose to read them. So the first one is Writing Technology in Teens, Summary of Findings. It's from the Pew Research Center. And what I thought was interesting about that was you can look at the statistics about teens and writing, and in particular their electronic writing practices, and you can kind of compare how that stacks up to your own life and your own experience, and that can be something you talk about in your speech. Another thing that I thought was interesting about it is many of the many of the findings in it actually kind of surprised me. For example, that teens actually value academic writing the most above other forms. There's a couple other surprising things in there. And third, what I'd like to point out is it has some numbers to kind of show that your relationship to writing is affected by your race. And I would argue it's also affected by your ethnicity, by your social class. I would even argue by where you grew up in the U.S., by the region that you're from, even if you are, of a similar ethnicity and a similar social class. And so those are things you can think about in your literacy narrative too. But maybe seeing how it affects other races, other ethnicities, you can start to think about, how has those things influenced my attitude towards literacy and reading and writing. Even if you've chosen to do a type of literacy that isn't reading or writing, I mean, your race, your social class, your ethnicity, that affects your attitudes towards all kinds of things, towards what sports you like, towards what hobbies you gravitate towards, all kinds of stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. If you read it, I hope you find it interesting. The next article I would point you towards is called Instant Messaging and the Future of Languages. There's a couple reasons I'm having you read this one. This one's pretty short. I don't disagree with the ultimate conclusion the author has. She does a good kind of brief explanation of the way that the English language has changed over time. And the reason I'm having you read this, or the reason I think this might be interesting to you, is to understand that language isn't some static thing. So we typically think of language as kind of unchanging, right? Language has these rules, and these rules for what's right and wrong, and those don't change over time. Those are universal. And that's actually not true. It's actually not true at all. So the English language has changed quite a bit. One of the things she mentions in the article, for example, before print was common, spelling was just kind of random. People just kind of spelled stuff however they wanted to spell it, and you had to kind of guess. And it wasn't until print became common that we standardized the spelling of certain things. And so, one, language changes over time, and two, that change is often connected to the technologies that we use. And so it wouldn't shock me, and in fact, I would be pretty surprised if it doesn't happen this way, that a lot of the shortcuts that we use in texting, those are probably going to be part of, formal written language, that right now we consider them bad, and right now we consider them bad writing, but it wouldn't shock me at all that by the time you guys have kids, certainly by the time, you have grandkids, that's going to be common, that you'll, instead of saying with, you'll put a W with a slash. Saying things like LOL won't be considered informal, they'll just be common. In the same way that in the English language, it used to matter if you said who versus whom, or it used to be considered informal if you used contractions. And now virtually no one cares about that. Now that really wouldn't be considered bad writing. It's just kind of become commonplace. And so a lot of the shortcuts you use texting, I think, are going to become commonplace. And she kind of talks about that and how language evolves. And that's something you could look at in your literacy narrative too, is how your understanding and your use of language has evolved over time. Or what types of language you use based on the technologies you're using and things like that. And that's something we'll talk about further too in our last module. But other than that, thanks for watching. Thanks for your interest in these optional readings. Let me know if you have any questions about these down below, and if you do choose to read them and you are interested, I'm happy to talk with you about them during my office hours. Other than that, keep at it.